Hi there, it's Andrew from Time Travel Reviews back with another non-time travel film review. Actually, it's two films. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't watch too many classic movies, or animated classic movies for that matter, and the only films that I watched that were made before 1994 that were animated were, and 1994 was the year I was born, was The Brave Little Toaster made in 1987, and The Land Before Time made in 1988.
The Land Before Time was one of the first films I ever saw as a kid. The film was probably one of my most nostalgic films, especially as I basically saw nothing from this film since the late 1990s until 2 months ago, when I decided to watch the film again. It's a Don Bluth film, made alongside George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, back when they weren't so controversial. It was critically and commercially successful and competed with a Disney film, Oliver and Company, which it seemed to be winning against in money grossing at the time, but eventually lost to. The film also spawned probably the most amount of sequels out of any animated film series, with 12 sequels as well as the TV show. We'll be getting to these later. But in 2000, after the 7th Land Before Time film was released on DVD, and it looked like there was still going to be a lot more, Disney decided to get onto the market of Dinomania that was happening all through the 90s with a film simply called Dinosaur. Good marketing. To say the least, the film was greatly inspired by the original Land Before Time. The film, while successful, spawned no sequels whatsoever and pretty much became an obscure Disney movie that no one ever cares about. I watched this film a couple of weeks ago thinking that I would be watching a film that I'd seen in the cinemas 11 years ago. However, pretty much nothing from the film I can remember at all, apart from the few scenes that were in the trailer for the film anyway. Plus my parents said they never took me to see the film, so I can only conclude there was a film I thought I saw, but I actually didn't. I had the Game Boy Color game though, or at least I thought it was the Game Boy Color game.
So as I hinted earlier, these two movies share a lot of resemblance. They're both about dinosaurs, they're both about finding a valley full of plentiful green food, and they're both about the struggles along the way. Dinosaur is not a complete rip-off, it still has some originality, which we'll explore here. But basically in this video, I'll try to come up with which one is the better movie of the two. I'm also going to be looking deeper into these films that I've done in my previous reviews, and if you don't want spoilers, or if you don't want your nostalgia of either of these movies spoiled, I suggest that you shouldn't watch the rest of this video. Anyway, without any further ado, let's go back in time to the prehistoric times, and take a look at what both films have to offer. Yeah, that was pretty terrible, I know.
So The Land Before Time starts off with a long introduction with a sweeping orchestra alongside the title. This is a great start to the film and a great piece of music. So we learn from the narrator, Pat Hingle, that the world during the time when dinosaurs roam is going through a great change, and that most of the world is becoming void of any edible plants for the dinosaurs to eat. There is a mystical place that everyone talks about called the Great Valley, which is a long way away. It's a place of green food and much water. Why the dinosaurs left this place in the first place? I don't know. Maybe it's not that they left it, but just somehow word got around that there was still this place where things still grew, and the dinosaurs were heading towards it. I don't know. Anyways, the dinosaurs must follow the sunset to the west to get there. Then we see 3 sets of dinosaurs hatch. A group of big mouths, 3 horns, and long necks, which are the simple names respectively for Saurolophus, Triceratops, and Brontosaurus. Sorry, I'm not very good with dinosaur names. So yeah, the dinosaurs call each other's species very simple names, but it kind of caused a bit of controversy among paleontologists who believe that the film should be teaching the kids the proper scientific name for the dinosaurs. It probably would have helped me with this review. But whatever, this was in prehistoric times, they didn't have scientific names back then. Then again, the dinosaurs couldn't talk with American accents. Whatever, I really don't mind calling each other these names, it makes it easier for me to describe them. Anyway, at this time, we only get really introduced to a long neck called Littlefoot, who hatches from his egg and gets greeted by a whole lot of over-curious creatures, followed by snuggling up to his mother like a cat. But anyway, cut to a year or two later, and he's travelling with his mother and his grandparents to the Great Valley. Littlefoot, however, waits until he's of some age before even bothering asking where they're going and why, as we can see from this scene. Or maybe he's asked many times and his mother is just a patient dinosaur. She seems nice enough. She also holds a world record for the most unintentionally slow head turn. So Littlefoot's mother picks him a tree star and explains that in the Great Valley there's many of these things. This scene is also an incredibly memorable part of the movie for me, and I really like how it's drawn and the music in this. Littlefoot then meets up with the three-horn we met earlier called Sarah, spelled C-E-R-A, as in Triceratops. Get it? Anyway, so her family is travelling parallel to Littlefoot's family, but before Littlefoot is able to play with her, he gets told off by Sarah's father.
Three horns never play with long necks.
Apparently the dinosaurs have a prejudice issue where three horns do not play with long necks. Kind of a little like our society, eh? Well, not really. The theme of prejudice is kind of an outdated theme, but whatever, you can enjoy the movie without following the theme if you want, or just accept that the dinosaurs have this prejudice and it's nothing to do with us humans. Littlefoot's mother explains how to get to the Great Valley, which she says is towards the sunset, past a rock that looks like a long neck, and past mountains that burn. Easy enough, eh? But while Littlefoot sleeps, a frog or a comes up to him to wake him, and he ends up running into Sarah and a Sharptooth, which is the name for a carnivorous dinosaur. This is also another memorable scene for me, and it is quite scary for this type of film released at the time. Littlefoot's mother comes to rescue Littlefoot and Sarah, and ends up getting a bite out of her back. If this wasn't bad enough, an earthquake happens at the exact same time, and it ends up splitting a whole lot of dinosaur families up and killing some others. Damn. Ever heard of coincidental convenience? Well, this is coincidental inconvenience. So after that scary scene is over, we see that Littlefoot has been searching for his mother for some time, and it started raining. Wait, how did he get separated? He was just running with his mother earlier. Oh well, anyway, it is revealed that Littlefoot's mother is dying, and has some final words for her son.
I'll be with you, even if you can't see me.
This scene was another very memorable scene from my childhood, and probably the saddest thing I ever watched in a movie when I was a kid. I have to again commend the music. It really shows the atmosphere of the scene and Littlefoot's emotions greatly. After this scene, we get greeted by Ruta, also voiced by Pat Hingle. Apparently this guy was to soften the blow of the previous scene. He is a wise little dinosaur who tells Littlefoot that he can still go on without his mother, and that his mother will continue to live on inside him. Or when he talks about the
great circle of life has begun.
Kind of reminds me of another animated film released 6 years later. Anyway, so Ruta goes away, and we don't ever see him again. There's something quite mysterious about that guy. We get a nice scene with some mini pterodactyls to distract us from the depressing nature of the last couple of scenes, but Littlefoot continues to feel depressed over his mother's death, as he should be, until his mother talks to him through a tree star.
Do you remember the way to the Great Valley?
Now, I'm not going to complain about this because it's made out that this is meant to be inside Littlefoot's head, and basically he's just hearing basically the same things that his mother told him when she was alive, so I'm not going to complain about mystics or anything. It's another quite memorable scene too. What is it about tree stars and being so memorable? Maybe it's because they're nearly the only thing from the green spectrum of colour in the whole film. Littlefoot then meets up with Sarah again, and basically by now we realise the difference between the two characters. Littlefoot is a fun-loving, curious, but somewhat serious dinosaur, while Sarah is very arrogant, proud, and racist.
Three horns can be very dangerous, and they only talk with other three horns, and they only travel with other three horns.
Sarah goes off on her own to find the rest of the three horns, while Littlefoot continues onwards to the Great Valley, as his mother told him to do. So then we meet Ducky. She's a swimming dinosaur or a big mouth who is much more friendly than Sarah. Also, she likes to play games.
Now don't step on a crack or you'll fall and break your back.
Is that where that don't step on the crack game came from? Littlefoot also discovers Petrie, a pterodon who can't fly yet. He's basically the comic relief character in the movie, but Littlefoot finds him more annoying most of the time than funny.
Are you just gonna stay up there?
Yes.
Well, you can't.
Whoa.
You're tearing my tree star. Oh, it is very special. Very. His mother gave it to him.
Hang on, when did Littlefoot tell Ducky that? The two only just met Petrie after meeting each other. Did I miss a scene? Whatever. Anyway, so in the meantime, Sarah follows the mountain crevice so far back that she actually finds the remains of the Sharptooth that killed Littlefoot's mother earlier in the film, and she decides she wants to act up towards it. Whoops. So somehow she managed to escape the crevice, catch up with Littlefoot and the others, and find exactly where they are, while still running. How did she do that? I guess three horns have some kind of tracking ability. But anyway, she tells the other three dinosaurs that she was intimidating the Sharptooth and some other lies. Littlefoot doesn't believe it for a second, and this is just the start of their feud. Ducky then finds a dinosaur egg and it hatches into a Stegosaurus or Spiketail, who she calls Spike. As he's a baby, he can't talk yet, well at least that's why we think he can't talk yet. So they all start travelling towards the Great Valley until they decide to stop to sleep. They get woken up by none other than the same sharp tooth that killed Littlefoot's mother, and it squashes Littlefoot's tree star. Dude! But they manage to avoid him and come across the first landmark towards the Great Valley, the rock that looks like a long neck. The rock was another memorable thing for me. What I don't get about this rock is how from every possible direction one is supposed to pass this rock. It's not like it's the end of a great narrow path or something where the only way to go west at all it would be through it. It's just there. So whatever, Littlefoot is able to find it, so good for him. But Sarah gets into an argument with Littlefoot about what is the right way to go. Sarah then goes into insulting a touchy subject to Littlefoot's face.
Who says? My mother. Then she was the stupid long neck too.
And as you would assume, they get into a fight. Being the species more prudent at fighting, Sarah beats Littlefoot to a pulp, and Littlefoot feels greatly defeated. Now, I really like this scene as it shows that Littlefoot is not a perfect character, and he doesn't try to be perfect either. It also shows that Sarah is much more stronger, and not as emotional as Littlefoot, or at least doesn't let on to emotions as much as Littlefoot. I also like that this doesn't gender stereotype, especially as these are dinosaurs, not humans. So Littlefoot splits up with the rest of the dinosaurs, and soon enough Sarah and the others fall into great danger, and Littlefoot comes to save them. This tar pit scene was another memorable one for me. The only problem I have with it is how did they actually ever manage to get out of the tar pit? At one scene we see them in there, and in one scene we see them completely out. How? And how did they know where Sarah ran off to? So yeah, they fuse into this big goo monster and scare away the dinosaurs that were attacking Sarah, and scare Sarah too. It's kinda silly, but it's really the only majorly cartoony thing in the film, and this is a cartoon. So yeah, Sarah feels really embarrassed about being scared by the goo monster, and goes and moves away from the other dinosaurs. Then the narrator tells us some pretty obvious things here too.
Sarah was still too proud to admit that she'd gone the wrong way.
The other dinosaurs then come across the same sharp tooth that killed Littlefoot's mother and destroyed Littlefoot's tree star. Now, let me be honest here, when I watched this, I thought that this, and the one who broke Littlefoot's tree star, and the one who killed Littlefoot's mother, were supposed to be completely different sharp teeth, but apparently they're meant to be the same one. So this sharp tooth followed them the way here? And it's not like he did it by scent, because he's looking at completely random locations. Maybe he overheard the leaf eaters and he wants to make his way to the Great Valley too. I guess that makes sense. But anyway, so Littlefoot wants to finish him off. I can understand that. This was the sharp tooth that killed his mother and destroyed his tree star. The only problem I have here is that Littlefoot doesn't seem particularly angry when he talks about this sharp tooth.
Look, we'll coax him to the deep end of the pond. He can't swim with those scrawny arms.
If his main motivation for killing him is revenge, which I understand, wouldn't he have some anger in his voice when talking about how to kill him? He was angry a ton at Sarah when she insulted his mother, but this is the being who killed his mother. Anyway, so they managed to form a plan to kill the sharp tooth. I like the way that Ducky tries to distract the sharp tooth. And they eventually put him to rest with the help of everyone in the crew, including Sarah. And then we get one of those scenes where they think the characters is dead, but they're not. Come on, I thought this movie was better than that. Oh well, it works better than some other films. So after that's done, Littlefoot gets greeted by a cloud in the shape of his mother talking to him. Another thing similar to that animated movie made 6 years later. Another very memorable scene for me. A problem though that I have with this series of events is the way the two complications get fixed quite coincidentally and very forced, and they're right after each other. Littlefoot just so happens to find the Great Valley right after we kill the big bad Sharptooth, and also Littlefoot has a sudden mood change in these scenes. He defeated the Sharptooth and was happy that they all survived, and suddenly it changed to him worrying about not finding the Great Valley. If anything, the Sharptooth fight would have given him motivation to find the Great Valley, and certainly not ask for his mother's help. But anyway, our narrator sums up the story by telling us the dinosaurs lived happily ever after in the Great Valley, and we get a great song composed by James Horner and sung by Diana Ross to play during the credits. Speaking of music, I really love the score of this film, and it's actually been one of the things that's gotten me into listening to film soundtracks. So well done, Mr. Recycling Man James Horner. So yeah, The Land Before Time is a great film for me and one of my more memorable children's films. I like the visuals, the music, the characters, the story, and the film is high on emotion too. I also prefer Petrie as a comic relief character to some other comic relief characters, such as the Don Bluth film Don DeLuise characters, even if I don't really find Petrie that particularly funny. I also think that the reason that I have so many problems with the plot of The Land Before Time is because so many scenes got cut out of the film. Apparently 19 scenes or 11 minutes of footage were cut from The Land Before Time before release to make it not as intense. Possibly this cut footage might have solved some of the problems I had with the structure of The Land Before Time. Also, apparently the way the ending was written was much different, and the structure of the ending was one of the main problems I have with The Land Before Time. Apparently Littlefoot was supposed to have found the Great Valley, but went back to defeat the Sharptooth and guide the others to the Great Valley in the original version, which actually sounds, ironically, like the ending of Dinosaur. It also makes much more sense when you think about it. Another problem I have with The Land Before Time is the fact that the narrator often says some really obvious things, so much so that I think the movie would have been completely fine without him. I don't mind the narration though, but sometimes it just makes the viewer feel stupid. Regardless of the problems I have, I still love the film. It's my favourite Don Bluth film, and one of my favourite animation films. So see you next part, when we talk about Disney's dinosaurs, and also compare the two films to see which one is better. Thanks for watching.